So Ash is a seasoned storyteller who we adore and love. Ash is soft launching into world domination starting right here on the 5th stage. Powered by caffeine, ibuprofen, anxiety, and ambition. She's back tonight because this shit is weirdly addictive, because it is. Yes, please give a big round of applause for a 5th favorite, Ash. How's that feel for you?
Hello. Better or worse? She asked me as she clicked the lens into place. Better, I said. When I was 16, I thought the world was just blurry. Not in a poetic, tortured teenager kind of way. I mean, literally, I couldn't see. The board at school, street signs, faces across the room, everything felt just slightly out of reach. And I'd been telling my mum for years, I can't see. And she'd say, you're fine, or you just want attention, or you don't need glasses, Ashley. Eventually, she gave in and she took me to get my eyes checked. At the end of the exam, the optometrist pulled out this heavy mechanical contraption, slotted the lenses in manually, and she placed it on my face. Then she took my hand and led me out to a window. And for the first time in my life, I could see the leaves on the trees. Not just green blobs, actual leaves, edges, shapes, movement. The light felt sharper, the world louder somehow, like everything had been quietly humming in the background and someone had finally turned the volume up. And I just stood there thinking, holy shit, this is what the world looks like. When I was 16, 3 very important things happened that changed the way that I saw the world and myself in it. That was the first. I grew up in a town called Sunbury, a small semi-rural town about an hour northwest of Melbourne. Everyone called it Scumbury, or the end of the line, because it was the last stop on the Melbourne train network. My mum hated it when I called it Scumbury. She'd say, have some fucking pride. Have some pride in where you live. And I remember thinking, pride in what? It was the kind of place where most people drank way too much. Everyone knew everyone, and everyone talked shit. If you spoke too much, you were a mouthy bitch. If you spoke too little, you were a stuck-up snob. If you had sex, you were a slut. And if you didn't, you were a dyke. And if you believed in women's rights, you were a feminist. And in Sunbury, that just meant that you hated men. And that was unforgivable. Growing up the way that I did meant spending a lot of time in pubs as a kid. And that is where the second thing happened. I was standing at the bar waiting for my mum when someone tapped me on the arm. I turned and saw an older man, red face, sweaty, drunk, the buttons on his shirt barely holding him together. And he says to me, "G'day, love. Can I buy you a drink?" My eyes widened. I turned my nose up and shook my head because gross. And he looked at me up and down, and he leaned in close enough that I could smell his breath, and he hissed at me, "Ah, you fucking lesbian." My whole body went tight. I stepped back and I stood there, frozen. He slammed his empty glass on the bar and he waddled away. Later that night, I thought about those words. the way that he spat them at me. His face twisted with contempt. At 16, I had already been called a lot of things, but a lesbian. A fucking lesbian. The idea had never crossed my mind. Not once. Because that wasn't an option in Sunbury. Lesbians only existed on TV, usually as the punchline of a bad joke. In my world, it was a lens that simply didn't exist. And I had a boyfriend. I always had a boyfriend. But then not long after, the third thing happened. I met someone who would make me see myself clearly. Her name was Rose. We met in a Yahoo chat room. My username was sexylegs13. With the E's replaced with 3's, because nothing says sexy like poor grammar and an underage girl in a chat room. She messaged me first. ASL, she asked. We started chatting that night and then we just never stopped. Messages turned into phone calls turned into these marathon every night rituals, 3 hours, 5 hours, 7 sometimes. Talking about everything, life, family, the places we wanted to go, the people we would be once we got out of the shitholes we were living in. Rose lived about 7 hours away on the border between Victoria and South Australia. Different town, same feeling. And somewhere in all of that, she became the clearest thing in my life. Very quickly, she consumed all of my thoughts. And then one night on the phone, she went quiet and she said in a whisper, "I have to tell you something." I knew what it was. Of course I did. But for an hour, we circled it, danced around it, afraid to touch it. I remember lying there, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the words, but wanting them, but also not wanting them. Because once they were out there, everything would change. But finally, she said it. Rose told me that she loved me. And I froze, because I knew I felt it too, but Rose wasn't an option, not like that, not where I came from. But in that split-second moment, the idea of losing her felt worse than whatever those feelings would mean. So I said it back. I told her I loved her too. A few weeks later, we agreed to meet up in Melbourne. And I was so nervous for so many reasons. I had never seen her before. She'd sent photos, but Rose to me existed mostly as a voice and text on a screen. She could have been anyone. A catfish, a serial killer. I went anyway. And I saw her first, because I had glasses now and I could see shit. She was sitting on a bench, waiting. I took a deep breath and I walked to her. And she looked up at me and she smiled. And it was weird, because she felt completely familiar and completely new at the same time. We spent the whole day together, walking around the city, talking in the same way that we always did. As the sun was starting to set, we ended up in an elevator. The doors closed. She took my hand and she kissed me. And suddenly everything came into focus. My whole body lit up. Everything in my head that had been so loud suddenly wasn't. It wasn't like kissing the boys in school. My neck contorted at an impossible angle and an overly eager tongue trying to lick my esophagus. This was different. Every nerve in my body tingling, my cheeks flushing red, my breath hitching in my throat. I leaned all the way in. I really did. It was just like standing in that optometrist's office all over again and finally being able to see clearly. But then the elevator doors opened, and that was it. It was time to go home. I got back on the train, back to the end of the line, and Rose back to the border. And it was all very bittersweet, because that kiss changed everything. But Rose and I were on borrowed time. She was a year ahead of me, and her escape plan was already in motion. In just a few months, she would finish high school and leave for a gap year in England. And I would still be stuck in Scumbury at the end of the line with one more year of school. A couple of weeks before she flew out, she called and told me to pack a bag. She was coming to see me one last time. My internet girlfriend drove 7 hours across the state of Victoria. I snuck out of the house. And we checked into a seedy motel on the edge of town. I know what you're thinking. Seedy motel, internet girlfriend, she's 16. This sounds like the beginning of a true crime documentary. It wasn't. We spent the night together, and it was everything. But we both knew what would happen next. She would take me to school, and then we wouldn't see each other for a year. We did the long distance thing for a long time. Her in the UK, me at home, emails, care packages, expensive international phone calls. All in secret, of course. She planned to move to Melbourne for university when she got back, but a few weeks before she landed, I broke up with her. Not because I didn't love her, but because I was finishing school and I needed my own escape plan. Staying close to Rose meant staying close to everything that I was trying to get away from, and I couldn't do it. I didn't want to spend my life sitting on a train at the end of the line going nowhere. Because if you don't get out, the doors slam shut, and that's it. You're stuck. So as much as I loved her, I let her go anyway. Very few people ever knew about Rose, what we were. I carried that quietly for years. And I didn't come out, not for a long time, because where I grew up, being yourself wasn't brave. It was a risk. My mum used to say, have some fucking pride. But it's hard to have pride in a place that's so full of prejudice. So I left. First Sunbury, and then the country. Because I saw clearly at 16, and once you've seen clearly, it becomes impossible to pretend that you can't. It took a few years and an entire ocean, but I finally understood what pride really meant. And for the first time in my life, I started saying it out loud. I'm a fucking lesbian. Thank you.